My name's Jonathan Frakes. You may remember me as Commander William T. Riker from Star Trek The Next Generation. And you're listening to Nerd On.
Nerd On.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Nerd On, the podcast you didn't need, but you deserve, and where all levels of nerd are welcome. I'm like, what? There is another voice in the room, and there's also another voice missing. So
it's true.
Lots
is happening today.
There's a lot of.
Corey's been officially replaced.
Yeah.
Let's see how it goes.
A new permanent member.
Yes, of the crew, one might say. We'll start it off. I'm Josh.
Ali.
Caitlin.
And I'm Tom.
Jonathan Frakes.
Woo!
Right? You heard that right.
Yes, we did. I heard it.
Yes.
I definitely heard it. And a little bit of housekeeping, 2 bits. This episode is brought to you in part by our patrons over at Patreon. You guys have allowed us to keep doing this show and to keep upgrading and to keep growing and to be in a beautiful room like this. I mean, it's fantastic. And if you are new to Patreon, what that is, it's essentially a membership service that you can subscribe to Nerd On, and you get all sorts of juicy bits like bonus episodes and early access of episodes, behind the scenes stuff,
peeks.
Discord communities.
There is a Discord server that you can chat directly to us and other fans. It's a lot of fun over there.
You get extra stuff, and you are a patron for our work, and you keep us running.
Mm-hmm. Another piece of housekeeping, and this is kind of a surprise and kind of not normal. But Corey did have to step out of this episode due to some family stuff. And so
this episode is dedicated to him.
Dedicated to Corey
He
Powers.
didn't die. He's coming back.
He just had some family stuff. So, continuing. This episode is rather special.
Yes.
Aren't they all, though?
They are.
That is true.
They
Thank
are.
you.
In their own ways. Yeah.
Keep me in my place.
But you give it a little bit more flavor.
You put a little more shine on this nugget today.
Yeah. It's a bearded episode.
Age, certainly.
Wisdom.
Call it wisdom.
Yeah, that's bullshit, though. You really bring a lot of experience.
You're like, oh,
He's a
great.
journeyman director.
Yeah.
So
all closeted words for age.
Yes. That's what young people say to.
So if everyone's listening on the podcast app, we know that we have Mr. Jonathan Frakes here in the studio.
Mhm.
And we're going to be talking about Roma. But before we get into this film that's taking Netflix by storm, we'll go a little bit and talk about Mr. Frakes here.
Because he is more than
As
just
long as you
Riker.
don't call me Mr. Frakes.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as you don't call me Mr.
That was my
Frakes.
dad, as they say.
Do you have any? I know one nickname is 2 Takes Frakes.
Do you want to know the origin of that?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
When I had the privilege of directing First Contact, which was my first movie. Shout out for First Contact.
Yes.
Maybe the best Star Trek movie, maybe the second best.
I've
Maybe
read
the
it's
third
the best. I will say that.
It's certainly my favorite.
Yeah.
I had a habit when I was shooting that if I like to take and it was happened to be the first take or whatever, I'd print it and I'd say, let's move on and get another size and we'll move on to get some coverage. And I made that mistake on this feature, and the producer whose name was Marty Hornstein, was the line producer. He said, he called me aside. He said, Frakes, this is a big studio picture, and the rule is you have to print 2 takes.
So 2 takes.
So the urban myth is that because I shoot fast, I'm called 2 Takes Frakes, and I get my shit done.
Nice.
So I like both.
It's official.
Yeah.
I like the truth, and I like the urban myth.
I take pride in either direction.
I do. You know what the Urban Dictionary says? What the definition of Riker's beard is?
Oh my gosh. Please tell me.
You guys, you nerds don't know the answer to this question?
Now I'm
Never
feeling
thought
under
to
the
look
spotlight.
Come on, dude. What kind of research did you do?
I feel like I
This
just
is a classic.
No, I just did, and I totally forgot.
And what is the definition of Riker's beard?
The
opposite of jumping the shark.
Shark, yeah.
Oh yeah, now you remember.
No, I just saw that, and I was like, okay, that's
hot. That's amazing.
It is.
That's gotta
I
be
love
comforting.
that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right?
Amazing.
Riker's beard.
So I'm sure a question for everyone listening is how did we manage to get you here?
Yes.
Josh.
And Bonnie.
Yes, Josh and Bonnie. My lovely wife and I were part of a theater company at one point.
Oh.
And
What is that?
and
Well, we did you tell them, the 24 Hours of Madness?
yeah, we did 24
Shout out.
Hours of Madness, which is basically, for those uninitiated, and in film, sometimes it's 48-hour film festival, kind of stuff like
Okay.
that.
Oh,
And-
I'm familiar.
It's a brilliant idea.
yeah, and so
it's intense and it's a blast.
you have 24 hours. The actors, directors, writers, they all meet in a theater. And
on a
there's-
Friday night
On a Friday night.
at 6:00.
Wow.
And there's like themes, there's a line, there's like certain things and how many actors. And
Those are
Jonathan,
the three they're pulled out of a hat. You give the number of actors you have, the theme,
yeah,
and maybe
A line.
yes,
like a line or like a prop.
or a suggestion or a prop. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's all you've got.
Wow.
And then the writer, I feel more bad for them because
Yeah.
they have to go home. And this meeting is like at 8 p.m.
Yeah,
And they have to go home and write.
they write a play
something.
that night.
Wow.
Oh.
And it's like 6 to 10 pages, sometimes a little bit more. And they do it. And then everybody meets the crack of your crack.
What?
It depends on
Yeah,
the
we
writer.
go back in the morning, and,
Yeah.
and we regroup.
And then we read it.
Just rehearsals.
We would block it. And then by like 8 p.m. that night,
We do a production. It was usually 6 1-acts. So it would be 2, 3
yeah.
play acts, and it was you were restricted by the light board that you had for the production it was on.
Yep.
Whatever sound cues you could sneak in.
Yep.
And get Josh to help you with.
There was a quick tech rehearsal, and I was in one of the plays, and then Bonnie was in Jonathan's, and they got connected, and they became friends via a script that Bonnie wrote.
We've been trying to sell her pilot for
Yeah,
a few years. Her
It's-
award-winning pilot.
yeah, award-winning
Broadband.
pilot, and
We'll get it on the air.
Oh,
we
yeah.
will.
It's gonna
It will happen. But yeah, that's how we know each other.
Sounds
And
like power of art brings people together.
It
Right.
really does.
That's what I did for in my theater class back in college. Was,
really,
Yeah, it was the same thing. Pull it out of a hat.
you never
Randomly
talk about
assigned.
this. I just want to
Yeah.
tell you this.
As a writer, director, actor, all the above.
More writing and directing, I guess, because I was the director for this particular play that we did.
He's gonna tack on acting too.
yeah.
Yeah,
Producing.
Actually, it was like 4 guys, in a class, but they gave us like a week to write it.
Oh.
That was the difference.
That's a different animal.
Yeah, I've done a 48-hour film festival, and that same thing where you write like immediately after 6:30 once you get all the information you have, and you're just like, oh, by 9 p.m. we have to have it done so that by midnight we go to the location, scout it
Yeah,
out,
and you have
shoot
like a
it.
quick meeting of like, okay, what's everybody
Yeah.
like to do?
Exactly.
What are they
your
strong?
strengths?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fascinating and exciting
Yeah.
process.
It's naturally chaotic.
It's a
'cause-
crucible.
Yeah.
It really
You-
gets like just baptism on the fire.
And it's wonderfully competitive.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
competitive
Oh, I'm sure.
anyway. And the level of, you want to make it's like doing television. You want to make the best episode of this show that's ever been made.
yeah.
Yeah.
You want to make the best 24-hour madness
Yeah.
act.
You want to
play.
make it more mad than matter.
Yeah.
But it's like raw talent, raw
Yeah.
energy.
Were you a director for this project then? The
I was
ones
a
we're
director.
talking about?
Yeah.
And-
Well, 'cause you're a
and they were in
recovering
it.
actor,
Yeah,
correct?
I'm a recovering.
Recovering actor.
I have heard you say that yourself, so I can say that.
Very true.
So you've gone more away from acting, but
Not by choice.
Not by choice.
Recovering.
No, it is certainly, it has been a blessing to become a director, to learn another craft. And I would not want to be putting my 2 kids through college as an actor who happened to be the guy from Star Trek. Unless you're Sir Patrick or Shatner, or those guys
Fair.
seem to have found their own other franchises. But it's been I never want to act as if it hasn't been a blessing to be part of this incredible franchise and world and family that I'm in, I continue to be in. But as the great Leonard Nimoy said, it's better to be typecast than not be cast at all. But
Very
we certainly have been, because we're recognizable from the show. Some shows don't want to have the Star Trek guy or the girl from Star Trek on their show because that takes
Away from it.
an audience out.
It's like an automatic association.
yeah. And in some places it works for you. In some places it's, it certainly works here at Nerd On.
Yeah, Of course. We typecast you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Sorry about that. Sorry
The
about
thing
that.
he talks about, though, I mean, like, it happened to, I forget the actor's name, but he plays Urkel.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that was like a pretty
Jamal.
detrimental thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jamal White.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Now I see him
It's
at
real.
all the conventions. He's, you know,
Yeah.
that's part of the
that was
world.
part of my family, my childhood, you know. So
So,
Jaleel White.
Jaleel.
There you go.
So how did you get into Star Trek? Like, what was the journey of getting to that point?
I auditioned for 6 weeks,
wow.
7 auditions.
Whoa.
Wow.
From the first meeting with the with Junie Lowry, the casting director, and then what followed with the producers. And because the show was an independent network, all the higher ups at Paramount needed to sign off on whoever was being cast.
Right.
And as it went up the ladder, I had a what I found was my lucky Sci-Fi shirt.
Yeah.
Which I was trying to Marie Kimbo my house the other day.
Does it spark joy?
Yeah.
Marie Kondo.
Marie Kondo.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the that shirt is in my closet. And it clearly brought me joy, or
Yeah,
it sparked joy. It
Spark
sparked a lot of
joy.
joy.
Spark
So that
joy.
fucker is still in the closet. I'll tell you right now.
I have to.
So that's 32 years ago, that shirt.
Wow.
And I wore it to each audition, and then clearly it, as superstitious,
sparked joy.
like it sparked a lot of joy. It changed my life. So I went back and auditioned more and more. And Roddenberry took me under his significant arm,
Yes.
the great space bird. And we used to go to his office for the final couple of auditions for the president of Paramount TV and all the people who were about. And Corey Allen, who directed the pilot, would be there, and Gene.
Yeah.
And Gene would get excited about his vision of the future, in which he really did believe.
Yeah.
And my favorite quote, part of the stories that I always tell at the convention, is that Roddenberry said, in the 24th century, there will be no hunger and there will be no greed, and all of the children will know how to read. And it just,
Yeah.
Heartwarming.
well,
It's what you
I think it's
what you
awesome.
want.
yeah.
for
And what
the
we
now.
need.
Yeah.
It is
Boy,
what we
oh
need.
Boy.
Yeah.
It's
More
it's
than
future
anything.
goals.
Yeah.
Future goals, man.
Hashtag
Would you say-
future goals?
Well, I mean, would you say the current, incarnations of Star Trek?
Are
Are
embracing
touching
that
on
a little
that?
more. I think I'm involved with Discovery.
Yeah.
And I hope
Yes,
to be
you are.
involved with the new Picard show. I think that we are very, very much intend to follow the canon of the show.
Mhm.
The first season of Discovery, I don't know if you've seen many of them, have a sort of dark
Mm-hmm.
Darker
edge.
vibe.
Yeah.
But at the core of the show and the lead of the show, Sonequa, has an incredible sort of spiritual leadership
Heart.
Mhm.
and heart. And the writing and the writers on the show are very well versed in all things Star Trek. And I think it's cinematically, it's like JJ's universe.
Mhm.
And I think tonally it aspires to be like TOS and Next Gen.
Not like what maybe Tarantino has in mind, right?
Well, I got to say, I'm a huge Tarantino fan.
Oh, yeah.
I'm fascinated by what that could.
Yeah.
Do you think that'll happen? Does that have any chance of
In a world
seeing the light of day?
I mean, yeah, I think it's definitely
Could it go
possible.
commercial?
Well, the Star Trek 4 has been shelved,
Mhm.
which means there's an
Something's
opportunity
going
for
on.
JJ
Yeah.
and Q
Q.
That's what we call him.
to collaborate. No,
I mean,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
That'd
I
be
mean,
cool.
it
I would
leaves
hope.
I mean, a rumor
availability.
that we loved was that it was a Next Gen movie.
Oh.
So everybody,
I mean, I know that JJ's all probably tied up with Star Wars as well, so it's like
He's a busy man. He's a
juggling
busy
two
man.
franchises.
Yeah.
He's
Got a
got
little bit going on.
yeah.
He's like a
Slightly busy
stitch.
guy.
Maybe he'll just cross them over so he can end the feud between the two.
Oh, jeez.
Do you
There's room for both, isn't there?
There's 100% there's room for both.
There's
Yeah.
always room.
the
for
galaxy is kind of big. Let's just
Also,
let's
one's
just
in the
say.
future, one's a long time ago.
Yeah.
So
Do you remember the moment that you got the call?
I do. I was living on 811 11th Street with Doc Carmen, who's a cameraman, who's still a dear friend, Stephen Altman, Bob Altman's son, who's a production designer. And we shared, this was like a bad bachelor pad.
both. Oh no.
Pizza boxes.
Yeah, exactly.
Socks. on
Imagine the worst you
lanterns.
can in 1986, I guess.
Yeah. It was
Visualize,
bad.
if you will. It was bad.
Imagine if you will.
Roddenberry calls me and says, "Congratulations."
And then hangs up. No.
That's it.
And I'm so excited. I was dating Jeannie. I'm married to the wonderful and talented Jeannie Francis. So I was going to go out and get in my car and go see Jeannie.
Yeah.
Nice.
And where my car had been parked in front of 811 11th Street, there was a little pile of glass.
Oh no.
So my car had been stolen the night before that I got.
Wow.
I haven't told that story in a long
The
time.
best
Yeah.
and the
Wow.
worst. It was the best of times and the worst of
That
times.
was the cost. You know,
Wow.
it's like, all right.
Yeah.
That was the cost to be.
And I'll tell you why it was stolen. Because it was a Cadillac and she refused to get in it with me.
Okay.
Mm.
And she was like,
It
she
was
stole
a
it.
Coupe de Ville. It was a two-door Coupe de Ville. Maybe she did steal it.
She hired somebody.
Maybe Gene called her first and said, "I've got good news." She said, "Good, now I can get rid of that Cadillac."
Maybe that was it. That's going to be a question for tonight when you get home. He's really thinking about it. He's really
It's
thinking
all
about
coming.
it.
It's all coming back to him.
I have a question.
Shoot.
If I can ask. So, I mean, you've been part of the franchise, you know, both as an acting role now in directing role. And so you've been able to see like where it's come from to the point where you jumped into the franchise and to where it's gone now. And then I know that you're also a really big fan of the Orville,
Yeah.
Seth MacFarlane show. So knowing that, what do you think about all these different takes or, you know, the kind of the void that this space genre is taking into like the world of like, you know, now you have Orville that's like more comedy and you have like the darker stuff and now things are starting to come up. So it's cool because, you know, when Star Trek first came out, it was like, you know, cutting edge, new, no one's ever seen it. Now we have years and years and still people are still making new things in that way.
Orville is its own
Separate
entity,
thing,
yeah. But because Seth was such a huge fan of Next Gen primarily, and because he had wanted to be a starship captain ever since he was 9 years old, and because of the considerable success that he's had in all of his other adventures at Fox, they gave him this opportunity.
Wow.
And he, thankfully, he hired Brandon Braga, who the guy who wrote First Contact and a bunch of the other, and produced Voyager, and he hired Robbie Duncan McNeil to direct, and he hired James Conway, one of our big directors, and he hired
all the staples.
He hired me. Then he hired Marvin Rush, who was our DP for years and went on to do Deep Space Nine.
Oh, yeah.
So he surrounded himself with Next Gen people.
Love letter almost, yeah.
And it was, and continues to be, for some people at the convention, I take sort of a litmus test at these conventions because I do quite a few of them. And fortunately, I'm involved in all these Star Treks in a way that they all want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Or what do the fans think? For the fans, a lot of the fans feel that Orville is their new Star Trek.
Wow. That's awesome.
And some of the fans feel that Orville is trying to do something that they don't get or don't approve of. And yet, if you watch Orville this season, and it was true even last season, it's not a comedy really. It's a very straight ahead episodic with some wonderfully absurd. But if you blink and miss him, he's not running back and
in case you missed it.
Yeah, there's no exploding
Quick,
shoes.
fast, in a hurry.
Yeah.
But it is
that's one thing that I was
it's such a
very
fine line that
surprised
he's
with.
walking, and I admire him for it. He's committed to it. He understands what it is.
Yeah.
And because he thinks like an animator, he sees in his head the framing of each shot. He hears the rhythm of the way the lines. I mean, he really understands what he wants, and he gets what he wants. And the show is an expression of that, and I think a wonderful expression.
Well, Family Guy's hitting 20 years in the next like couple of weeks. Like this year, 2019 is, I believe, 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, 20 years.
That's a fair few.
Man knows what he's doing, I think.
Well, yeah, and he's got Cosmos up and running, and he's got other projects, and he's a wonderful singer. He goes out and sings with symphony orchestras. He's a fascinating cat.
Yeah.
He's a very talented human being.
Yeah.
I have a long time ago theater. I was in Beauty and the Beast, the musical, and down in San Diego, and I was the stunt double for the Beast. And the Beast was this guy named Luke, and he was best friends with Seth MacFarlane. And he'd be like, "Oh, just a second, I'm talking to Seth." And he's been on the show a few times as like because they sing together. And he just says he's such a nice guy. Like he's super nice and whatnot. And it's good to hear. You know, you're like, man, that's good to hear.
That's always good to hear that.
Yeah.
About the people you,
So with the directing thing, because you kind of led the way for cast members to become directors in a sense.
Trailblaze.
My thought about it is, okay, so you were hired as an actor and you're William Riker and you're on the set. Do you remember a moment that you saw what was happening in front of you and was like, or did you go into it going, I want to be a director? Or was it like a light bulb moment where you're like, this is it. I really want to do that.
It was more of a fade in, more of a rheostat.
Okay.
I remember it was, first of all, it was so exciting to be on the show, and we were doing 26 episodes a year, and everything was fabulous.
Yeah.
But because there were, I guess, 7 or 8 of us, there were a lot of regulars in the show.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of sitting around.
Okay.
And it was fine for a while. You could sneak a nap in, which is great. But
Those are healthy.
I like the...
You want to be working.
I want to be working.
Yeah.
And so you look around and it's pretty clear who's involved in every shot. The director, the operator, it was too late for me to learn to be a camera operator, script supervisor, which is too much busy work for me,
crazy.
more than I could
That's
understand.
insane work.
And I knew something a little bit about directing. And so I asked Berman, who was the keeper of all things Star Trek, Rick Berman at that time. And he said, well, you got a shadow and you got this. And he was really hoping I'd go away. I'm sure he was. Because it happens on all shows.
And now you evil laugh
actors
like,
would-
whoa.
and how? But he, so I did. I shadowed all the directors that were working on the show. And then he very generously offered up the editors who also naturally wanted to direct. So I spent, 300 hours in the editing room with these guys, which was the part of the craft that I knew least about.
Yeah.
And probably where I learned the most about making television was in the editing room, where those guys said, here's what we have to have to make
Yeah.
the scene work.
You
You
get
know,
to see the background work,
Exactly.
and it's
if
like,
you have
okay.
if you have more time, go ahead and get more. But you need X, Y, especially in
To
those
tell the
days.
story.
Enough to tell the story. And because you probably remember, our show was very old fashioned. Our show was a lot of
Yeah.
very little movement and a lot of
Medium wide shots.
medium shots and coverage and rakers and
Yeah.
breakers. And it was a
Did we get a Fraker?
lot of
We did.
a lot of Roman coins. But it was a show that has a look, as all shows do.
Yeah.
So then he let me into some of the pre-production stuff and some of the casting and the concept meetings and go to production meetings. And then I'd go to spotting sessions, which was really exciting. And they always recorded with a live orchestra,
Yeah.
Dennis McCarthy and that full orchestra at Paramount. So that was thrilling. And it really went on for at least a couple of years. And there were days when we lived in Tarzana, and if I was not shooting, I'd say to Jeannie, I don't know if I got to go in today. She said, the day that you don't go in, we'll give him an excuse to say you're right.
It's
So I
true.
have Jeannie to thank for
Yeah.
that as well.
And your stolen Cadillac. I mean,
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
maybe we'll find out tonight.
Do you still get to do like the scoring sessions? I mean, I know that
Yeah,
even the music.
I love it.
Yeah.
Nice.
This guy Russo, who does the music on Discovery, has a big affection for God, his name just went out of my head. Jerry Goldsmith
Oh, okay.
was our composer. He and Williams were sort of the cream of the crop. I'll tell you a quick Jerry Goldsmith story.
Do it.
Please.
He was very, 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 very old. This is about, I don't know how many years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. A dear friend of mine named Norman Steinberg, for whom I work, who wrote My Favorite Year and used to write with Mel Brooks,
Oh, wow.
was a friend. And Jerry's father was dying. And he was like 103.
Oh, wow.
His name was Isaac. So Jerry Goldsmith, who was also very sick, says to Norman Steinberg, would you speak at my father's funeral? He
Wow.
dies. So Norman says, of course I will, but I'm going to have to, my style. And I guess Jerry gave him his blessing. So allegedly at the funeral, and obviously they're Jewish, so it had to happen 24 hours as soon as they're dead. Norman says, Isaac Steinberg died yesterday. He was 103 years old. He was asking for it.
Hey! Savage.
Oh my God.
That's a good line, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
He was asking for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is cold. Cold hard facts.
While we're on the subject of the music, though, that is the part of filmmaking that I find I don't understand, but love the most is how do you think about, first of all, what melody to use, what instruments to score with, to enhance.
It's going to
those
establish
scenes.
the feel.
Yes, and how you can enhance it. And we all see it.
Yeah.
A dry scene is great sometimes, but boy, when you add the right elements, you can cry or you can laugh or you can understand it more completely.
It gives you hints. Like we've
It's-
talked about in Lord of the Rings, there's a couple of themes in there that when you hear it, you're like you get
Yeah.
goosebumps and you're like, something's about to happen.
Something's coming.
Something bad or good. We don't know.
I mean, even for better or for worse, if you take like the music out and you put the like a completely opposite score, it just changes the mood completely.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like this horror is now a comedy.
Well, they say that well, I mean, how important sound and music is. Like a horror movie, they say if you just mute it, it's
It's
not
very
as scary.
anymore.
Yeah.
Well-
And so the music is really like, it's just like, oh, there's a lot of blood.
I'm like a nervous puppy. Everything scares me. So if you could mute a horror movie and it'd still be scary
Yeah,
for
you're,
me.
afraid, you're afraid of like Doritos or something.
I am, yeah. They're scary.
It's definitely a
It's
part
the
that
nacho cheese.
fascinates me for sure. Because you always think about, does the filmmakers, I'm sure they do to a certain extent, have to have the consideration for, okay, there's going to be probably music at this part,
Yeah.
et cetera,
Well,
et cetera.
sometimes it's quite obvious. Here's first of all, here's the end point. You can see in a scene where the eye contact suggests, oh, you could just hear the music cue. Here's where the music cue's got to start.
Yeah.
And that's kind of delicious to know that.
Yeah.
And but the idea, the melodies and the rhythms that they create, especially masters like that,
But week after
it
week.
just
It's sorcery.
it really is. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I have, again, the privilege I had to direct those big movies with those big movie
Orchestra.
makers. Goldsmith was at the top of the list of people who I was fanboyed on, and he
Walking
was
into work
fabulous. Well, he was, and he was so generous.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. Anyway, very talented and wonderful guy.
Meeting
Well,
your heroes.
And you
Yeah.
have like a musical background, right? Like you played trombone,
Well, yeah, I play trombone. I play loud,
loud.
but I don't play that well.
Okay.
I played on the show. Riker played trombone on the show. And when the trombone playing on the show was okay and sounded like regular trombone playing, it was me. But when the trombone playing was beautiful, it was a player named Bill Watrous, who's a jazz trombone player who's fabulous, who was part of the orchestra that used to score the show.
Oh, that's awesome.
Awesome.
And so he made Riker sound better.
But when did you start playing trombone? Like your
I started
affinity
playing
for-
in fourth grade,
in fourth grade.
Jefferson Elementary School, Bethlehem,
Shout out to
Pennsylvania.
Jefferson.
And why did I start playing trombone?
Girls.
No, that's another.
Because
That's,
it
that's
looks-
why I started acting or dancing. I mean, because they had two trumpets, two saxes, and one trombone. So the guy with the longest arms got the trombone.
Wow.
And you had long
And
arms.
that was me.
Well, you're 6'4",
I'm revealing a
right?
lot of shit to you guys
Right.
tonight.
Riker
There's a
long
lot
arms.
of good stuff in here.
A lot of
great.
A lot of
goodies.
juicy bits.
Yes.
Yeah.
As
All
someone
that
said
clips or
earlier.
ad marketing.
Shall we
media.
call that the episode? Juicy Bits?
Juicy bits.
I
Long
have
arms and juicy bits.
I have a juicy bit to ask.
Mhm.
So we're in an age now where we're seeing a lot of animated shows becoming revived. So we're seeing like Thundercats and Young Justice and things like that.
What about Gargoyles?
What about Gargoyles?
Oh man,
I
I wish
want
that
it.
show was still on.
I bought.
Do you remember
too.
Gargoyles?
I bought the VHS with the board game in it.
Yeah.
You remember? Yeah, I mean, like that was. I played the board game as the movie was playing while I was watching.
There's
a
a
TV show.
very strong group of people about your age who remember Gargoyles really
Well,
well. It
there-
was only on for 2 years.
I'm seeing like just from my lurking all over the internet, there's actually a huge push for a reboot of Gargoyles.
Well,
A reboot or a feature.
Yeah.
Or a feature.
Or a live action version.
Oh.
Which would be
Oh,
great.
like
It's so dope.
Imagine the attractions they can have at Disneyland with having gargoyles there. Like,
Yeah.
it would sell like hotcakes because it has. And I mean, you get like the aesthetics if you do live action for like with Guillermo del Toro. You know, like good prosthetics. And you get
Could you imagine?
some of the same voice talents to just do the actors, and then you have performance capture. You know, art performers It'd be cool. Like it.
You've got a cunning plan.
I mean,
It's a very cunning plan.
So if anybody's listening,
The show was on in the afternoon, and the show I've always felt was too smart for for its time.
everything for children was too smart for that time.
Yeah. And because there were wonderful Shakespearean references and there were underlying, good versus evil and philosophy, and there was a lot going on in it.
How they spoke to, yeah, especially.
And it was one of those gigs. I hadn't done a lot of cartoons before that, and I try to do as many as I can because it's the best,
Voiceover is great.
It's the world. It's a great world. The artists are great. The work is wonderful. You sit like this, you work and play like this, and it's
20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe.
kind of a dreamy job.
So, I mean, with that, if there was going to be like a revival series, would you want it?
Oh, in a heartbeat.
And
I'd still be on Next Gen.
okay, yeah.
Marina Sirtis, Counselor Troy, and I've always said we'd be still doing the show. If,
And
you wouldn't have to ask us twice.
in your journey, since you've gone from acting and now doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, not just purely performance. I mean, would you want to helm some of those different episodes or arcs?
Of course, it's a. There are three things that usually come up at these Star Trek conventions. The first, obviously, is Next Gen, and Gargoyles and Beyond Belief, fact or fiction, seem to be the next two in that sort of the genre fans realm. I just did an episode of a German Netflix show called "Don't Try This at Home."
Okay.
And
That
the
sounds
German
safe.
producer came to the recording, which we did in front of a green screen out in the valley, and he said, "Well, as they were making the deal, I said, what he really liked in Germany, Beyond Belief is called X Factor, and it's huge.
okay,
Not David Hasselhoff huge, but huge,
nothing's bigger than David.
right?" So he said, "Do you remember what you did when you were hosting Beyond Belief?" I said, "Yeah, sure I do." So I did a little bit of that sort of, and he said, "Could you do more like that?" And I said, that was my fact. That was my German accent, since it was
Beautiful.
English.
That's
German
good.
is the
Yeah,
second
yeah.
language.
Good.
More like that, Frakes. So I said, "Sure." And I said, "Do you want it to be self-parody?" And the American producer explained what I meant, and he said, "Yes, yes." And I said, "Would you like more gravitas?" Yes. So I did with more of that sort of, pompous asshole gravitas.
Oh boy.
Give me more.
Give me more. So each take and each little version of this act that I was in, the German guy said, "Could you do one more? Even more gravitas?"
Oh my God.
Even more.
He loved the word by the time he knew what it meant. So that was my Beyond Belief moment, which happened last month.
If you could give, like, let's say we have a director in the room. We have Tom. If you could give a young director
Hi.
one piece of advice.
One piece of advice.
Maybe two if you're feeling spicy.
Always have a shot list.
100%.
Preparation is 90% of the job. When in doubt, shoot low and wide.
Oh,
Low and
When in
wide.
doubt,
I know
shoot
why.
low and
I know
wide.
why, but I never thought about low. That's interesting.
Why low and wide?
Yes, it gives you a cool look.
Yeah, it does. It does. Because you think about it, you just get your wide, dumb master shot, and it's like, all right, you got that.
But you'll use it.
But you will.
Yeah.
You will to save your butt.
Always save your time.
Exactly.
Save enough time. And the producers and line producers and first ADs will always try to talk you out of it.
No, don't ever.
Well, sometimes you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
And get an 8mm lens if you can.
8mm lens.
Interesting.
No.
So,
Good tips.
I have one more question. Since you do have the honor, privilege, and experience of being an actor and director, you mentioned a while ago of your portrayal of Don Quixote, and you mentioned
I did?
a while ago you mentioned your performance, and
Not
I think
today.
the critics said you gave the best performance you can possibly give as Don Quixote.
No, Jonathan Frakes did as well as could be expected.
There
Exactly.
it is. It's like
Where'd
burned
you get
in my
that one? That's
mind
great.
I
forever.
do some research,
we try.
You didn't know about Riker's beard.
I did.
Maybe you
It just there's a lot of the things I had to memorize, but
It's
also
like that moment when somebody says, "Oh, sing me that song."
I was like, oh, which one?
You know that song, Your Hit.
What is your perspective on, reviews, critics? Because I think we're in that era where a lot of people decide whether to go to something or
because Rotten Tomatoes says,
But
or
also,
Metacritic or IMDb or wherever
That's
they read.
a really good question. It's a complicated. Yeah. Well, let me go back. I'm not sure that it matters what people say about things, especially big event movies that are going to happen.
yeah.
And when I read what critics say about television now, the good TV critics say, I don't have time to watch all the stuff that I know I should watch. They literally don't have enough time.
Yeah.
So they give you a list of their 10 best list is 15 best or 20 best. And here's what I think we should all.
Yeah.
In the theater, I think certainly in New York, the critics still matter in a way that they're going to go spend a couple $100 on a seat to go to the theater and go out for the night, and they want to make sure they're going to see something that
it's a big decision.
And
Is
also
worth
theater
investing
goers
in.
have critics that they trust or they feel that, oh yes, they think like I do. And I think that may be true with movies, but I'm not sure that reviews matter. I know that I went to movie jail when I did Thunderbirds, and the reviews for Thunderbirds were horrible. So I that sort of flies in the face of what I'm saying. But that also was released opposite Spider-Man and Shrek, which had sort of had a leg up on us.
Well,
I think people go to see stars, or they go to see a franchise that they know and love. I mean, I'm a fan of Ozark, for instance.
Oh,
And when I couldn't wait for the second season to start.
it's so good.
It's so good, and it's so good on so many levels. And
Yeah.
he's never been better. And the girl who runs the strip joint for him, whose name I can't remember, there's so many wonderful things about it. And I used to feel that way about House of Cards, and then I sort of lost my mojo for House of Cards. Even though I'm watching this last season with Robin Wright,
It's interesting to see the show making abilities of people who have to, take on the show after a lead character has to exit their roles. But
But
Man.
there's a real loyalty to things that you've had good memories with.
That you're invested in.
Yeah. And that's certainly been the success of Star Trek. People will come to see all the Star Treks. The hardcore fans will come to see all the Star Treks and then decide whether they like it or not. Or when we first started, the audience was so skeptical and so not ready for anybody to mess with their Kirk and Spock and Bones, especially an bald English actor from France.
True.
It was a very skeptical audience. And then by the third season or so, we were allowed in.
Yeah.
And the same thing has happened now with Discovery. It didn't even take them that long. The people are more pissed off about having to pay in the United States to watch Discovery on CBS All Access.
Yeah.
Because I've been watching Star Trek for free for 50 years. And I got to say, I get it. Why are they paying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it's on Netflix everywhere else in the world and it's free in Canada.
Oh.
Wow.
There you go.
So anyway, that's another.
So it's more that the audience is more important than the critic, would you say?
I think that's a very good way to put it. Yeah. At least that's been my experience. What is your take on?
I mean, I think that's what the filmmakers and storytellers try to do. They try to make a story for the audiences, but I think what happens, it's crippling that the critics sometimes have such a pull that audiences look at that as an answer and not a point of discussion.
Well, are the critics the same as the Rotten Tomatoes? Because the Rotten Tomatoes is a number.
It's an aggregate, but
It's an aggregate. Is it an aggregate of critics?
It's aggregate of critics, and they say yes or no.
Yeah.
And so
that number does, I think, have a significant effect on people going to the movies. When they're spending their money, and probably involves dinner and driving and all the other shit that goes with it, it becomes it's like the theater.
Well, because
when you go out for the night,
nowadays it's just there.
It's integrated into Fandango.
Yeah.
It's integrated.
It's also part of people's marketing.
Yeah.
It's like it's
certified
fresh,
and it's on their ads.
Yeah.
When it does well, you see the stamp.
And some people just say like, "Oh, if it's fresh, I'm going to watch it. If it's not, I'm not going to watch it." They don't try to give it.
But
even
they
if it's
haven't
something
heard
that-
anything about it. They've seen a number,
Yeah,
Right.
which is sort of the.
and it's rough. And it even goes as far as like they rate actors, and it's like, how do you?
I did not know
how
that.
do you do that? They rate actors and they rate filmmakers. It's like, I don't want to be part of that. I don't want to like throw a number onto somebody.
I did not know that.
Their bodies of work.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
it's tough.
Toughen up, buddy.
I mean, it's tough because like it's like kind of like you say, it's like how you go about it is the balance with it.
Oy.
Yeah.
I have one more question before we get into the topic. What
I
do
love
you
that you guys do the topic too.
the topic?
It says like password.
What do you find most rewarding about your place in nerd culture?
The generosity and kindness of the fans that I experience and have for the last 31 years never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah.
I, as I said, I do a lot of the conventions, and I still do them because in each, no matter what city I'm in, and no matter what country I'm in, someone will come up, or 5 people, or 12 people, or 15 people, and say, "I'm an astronaut because," or "I'm a doctor because," or "I'm a physicist because."
Wow.
And even more potently, they'll say, "The only time my father was ever nice to me was when we sat down to watch Next Gen." Or occasionally,
Oh, my heart.
well, get ready for this one.
Oh.
An amputee will come up and say, "You guys helped me get through Kuwait, Afghanistan."
Wow.
And they're dead serious. And they say, somebody sent me the DVDs. We used to watch your show every night, and you got us through.
That's
and
awesome.
And their seriousness and their candor and their
Raw emotions.
yeah, and the ability to trust us with that kind of, especially the family stuff and
Yeah.
the war, the PTSD part of their lives.
Yeah.
And when they see us, some of these people see us, and we remind them of a very significant part of their lives, and we're just the actors, and you try to explain to them that,
But you're
really
more to that.
the writers.
to us.
it was really the
There's
writing,
so much
and they
more.
said, yeah, but that they don't want to.
But you're the face of that.
you're the face of that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that is and it's
It's tangible.
it's tangible, and also because it was Star Trek.
Yeah.
I mean, I was, I could have been on. I've been on some really shitty television shows, and the blessing again is to have been part of this, and then to see how, and it's been on for 50 years or 51 years since the original series.
Yeah.
Wow.
People, and Shatner has the same thing. They come to him and they say that you helped me do this, and now there's 2 or 3 generations of people with the same.
Yeah.
So that's been the greatest part of this.
Nice.
I mean, it's been wonderful. The work's been great. The lifelong friendships, obviously, the fact that you could get rid of the Cadillac and get a real car.
Being
yeah.
on a podcast.
Yeah, get on a podcast with Josh and his buddies in the garage.
What's funny is actually really strange 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. We had Jeff Nimoy on our show, who is second cousin, once removed, I think is the joke,
of Leonard.
to Leonard Nimoy. And he said almost exactly the same thing that you said, the graciousness of fans. Because he's voiceover. And he's like, when people recognize me and they tell me because he was showrunner, director, writer, voice and a couple of like Digimon and some other things that are very well known. And he's like, when people recognize me, I'm voice. I'm just totally like,
I have a toy of him. It's like
yeah.
it's that kind of. That's a cool thing. That's like that empathy, that part in people's hearts. That's something that money can never buy.
No, and also the fact that they feel that they can trust that intimate story with you, or they've waited in line literally to tell you. I've seen people collapse at the table.
Wow.
I've seen really big, teary, emotional moments that you're sharing that with them.
Yeah.
It's a strange responsibility. It's a privilege, obviously.
People want to get engaged in front of people.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen that happen more than
Yeah.
once.
Oh.
That's dangerous.
Engaged.
That is dangerous.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Make
Yeah.
it so. I'm sure you've heard that.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Oh,
I've seen I've seen one. I don't think so, and it was the most painful, brutal, and it happened right in front of my table.
Oh no.
Shout out to them.
the hearts.
The hearts.
Speaking
the feels.
of moments,
So,
since we are talking about Roma today, which is all about life's moments, whether
Oh,
they
boy.
be positive or negative, this is a question
Nice
to segue
transition.
into that.
Right?
I can feel it coming.
It's
This is
coming.
a very
That's
nice
what
Do
it is.
you
transition.
have any moments in your life, not necessarily Star Trek or any directing, acting? Do you have any moments in your life in Roma style that you really remember?
That's like a crack on
Which
the wall.
I know I'm putting a giant spotlight over top of your head, but if the first thing that comes to mind that you're like, that is a moment
A
that
Roma
defines part of my life.
Besides the Cadillac.
Besides the Cadillac.
Well, the woman
and
who we
Riker.
think may have stolen a Cadillac
Oh, there you go.
certainly saved
Warmer.
my life, literally, Genie.
Yeah?
So that moment in time is
Where she stole the Cadillac?
no.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it was her.
No, what we would do is we would zoom in on the glass
Yeah.
and stay there for just a little bit.
And let water wash over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, do you have a moment like that?
Yeah, I do.
Do you want to share it with the class?
No, I don't.
so
fair.
That's good.
this is what I like to call
And then
and now for something completely different because we have talked to Jonathan.
Isn't that
about
Monty Python?
Yes, it is.
Oh, yeah.
And now for something completely different and then an explosion.
so we're
The
talking
thing
about
that we love about our show is that we don't want to just talk to you about you because anybody can look on the internet, go to YouTube. We want to find out something that you're passionate about. And our emails you had mentioned.
I must have just seen Roma.
He's like, I hate this now.
No, but I don't know how you felt about it. First of all, it's visually. Do you want to introduce the movie and talk about Cuarón and all that? Did he write
I can.
Well, we can
DP
do
and
We can get into
direct?
brief synopsis and
Yeah.
and
So yeah, I mean, this
text.
is for everyone that's listened to the show before. This is pretty familiar. We're talking about Alfonso Cuarón's Roma. He wrote and directed it. Came out exclusively on Netflix 2 weeks before it had selected theater release. And as a brief synopsis about the film, it takes place in 1970s Mexico.
1970, 1971.
Mexico City.
Mexico City. And it follows the story of Cleo, who is a nanny for a family where, in a long story short, she finds out she becomes pregnant and she takes care of 3 other children while their relationship is falling apart. So you see her through her day-to-day cleaning, getting things prepared for their family life,
Figure out
going-
what to do with this pregnancy. Like,
it's very brand new, and through
Taking care of the other mother.
yes,
Yeah,
taking care of the
She
other
becomes a mother.
Yes. Through different points that you're traveling through the city, we find out that she's never been with anyone else and she's never had any type of sexual relationship before. This is the first time she's ever had it. And in a way, she's kind of shell shocked throughout the entire thing. Her responses aren't dramatic or frenetic as one might think of when we think of American modern television of like pregnancies. And the father to be doesn't take any responsibility, completely just disappears.
Just the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
he
just
threatens her.
yeah.
ugh.
And so there's this bond that starts building between Cleo, the nanny, Cleo, and the mother, as the husband is left.
And she's establishing her own power as a woman.
yeah. And we're starting to see the development of these children, where they're going on through the world, or the city, what's happening. We're seeing strikes. We're seeing students rioting, a lot of crazy stuff that's going on at the time. To spoiler, a very dramatic moment where there's a fire in the forest, to having a child be stillborn,
Yeah.
and at the end coming to terms with her never being really ready to have this child, Cleo never really being ready to have this child. And I found it most beautiful that the fact that she had a miscarriage and this family is pretty much falling apart but still trying to hold itself together,
Yeah.
to this climactic moment at the end where all the truth and all the bad is kind of getting washed away to pretty much an empty home when they come back to it.
Yeah.
And life kind of has to continue, but
I was going to say life goes on.
life goes on, but we're changed.
See, I
We're
thought the
changed from it.
significant scene in the movie was the scene in which she saves the children in the sea.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah, in the water. And they go back home, and they're back to a house where the father has vacated, taking all the bookshelves, leaving an empty house, to where she continues her life, living for this family, being their nanny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was written and directed by
By Alfonso
Alfonso Cuarón.
And just some of the notes. You may know some of his works from Gravity, Sandra Bullock and George Clooney. Children of Men, Clive Owen. I love that movie. And Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. And also...
Is that the best Harry Potter?
I think it's the
I
best
love it.
film made.
Yeah.
Like filmically, it's the best one. Filmically.
Wow. That's
Usually
such a
he
technical
uses
word.
film language, but that's, you know. And
Who was the DP on Roma?
On Roma. Oh,
Himself.
He was.
Himself.
He was.
That's what I
himself.
He was. It was the first time I think he ever did his own cinematography.
Tom's panicking. Every time you ask him a question, he's like,
I'm not that tough a guest.
His big one was E tu Mamo Tambien. I mean, that's
the
what
one that
really
got him on
kind
the
of
market.
Yeah.
marked him as like, oh, maybe we should listen to this guy. Maybe we should give him some money. So it does. So it's produced by Alfonso Cuarón.
As well as Gabriela Rodriguez, who worked as a PA on Pan's Labyrinth to Del Toro, and then later on went to become the assistant to Cuarón on Children of Men, now becoming his producing partner,
That's pretty
which
awesome.
I thought is super dope.
That gives us all hope.
yeah.
yes.
Nicholas Chelis, who has been producing since 2007, 3 to 4 films a year, mainly in documentary or executive producing and narrative films, and all of them, you know, in Mexico, pretty much. And then the cast is Yalitza Aparicio, who had no formal training.
This is her
Non-actress.
non-actress,
only
first,
film.
and you know has been nominated for several awards around the world because of this.
I don't get it.
And it was complete luck that because he said he took forever to find her, and that it was complete luck because she had like just finished school or something, and it was going to be 6 to 8 months before she got approval and could start the job. So she was like, got nothing better to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
Mrs. Sophia is played by Marina de Tavria.
Which is, she's pretty big.
She's pretty big, and the
Mexico.
tough thing is like I try to do a lot of like looking up like where she's been and what things, but it's all in languages I can't read.
Oh,
So
well,
I could look up her IMDb all day and mispronounce all the movies and TV shows she's done, but
Yeah.
she's been working for a really long time, and it's actually a pretty big name. So
It's 135 minutes long.
Mhm.
The budget was 15 million, and the
That's it?
yeah, and the box office is
Gross.
3 million.
3 million now.
That's it? Too?
Well, because it went.
Well, I don't know what the deal they had with Netflix.
Yeah, we
was.
don't know that.
Netflix
so.
is
Yeah,
pouring
that's
money
different.
into things right now.
Well,
So who knows?
Because
how
I think
much they might have-
theatrical release. I mean, I think that's pretty par for the course when it comes to like Academy nominated films. Like The Artist made like no money when it first came out. Another black and white film, but you know, we all know Alfonso Cuarón made his money in Netflix.
Yeah.
Well,
this
and then
movie feels brown and white to me,
yeah.
Yeah, like
doesn't
sepia.
it? Sepia. tone.
Yeah.
There's also the like, I guess it's a mild controversy, maybe a large controversy. I don't know, of it not being accepted into
Venice.
Cannes.
Oh,
Or-
Canes,
No, it
yeah.
went to Venice.
Yeah, it didn't go to Cannes.
Didn't
Yeah.
go to Cannes because of the Netflix
of the
release,
Netflix-
correct?
Yeah.
Really?
And is it not also considered a candidate for a foreign film, best foreign film as an Oscar?
Yeah.
In addition to being best film.
Yeah,
Right.
Interesting.
Well, Cannes was like, oh, that's not real filmmaking.
Wait,
Cuarón
what?
they're trying
boycotted
to,
it.
I think that's
Well, because Netflix.
I don't know how long that's going to last. That theory.
Yeah.
People are just kind of people are just
They're poo-pooing
boycotting Netflix.
People are just being
Yeah.
gross.
That happened to Beasts of a Southern Nation
Oh wow.
as well.
Beast of the Southern Wild.
The Southern Wild, the
Yeah.
exact one.
It was years ago.
Yeah, but
Was
people,
that made directly for Netflix?
Netflix? And people
was a wonderful
boycotted
movie,
that.
too.
Yeah, it
it
was.
is. And like for me, I think Netflix is the big giant monster machine that they are. But if they're able to produce great films, then they're producing great films. There is a black and white to it.
Yeah.
But film festivals are now like the gateway, the gatekeeper to becoming the best picture films.
Yeah.
Now, at least.
Well, I
last
was
10
in
years.
Toronto during TIFF this year, and the Lady Gaga phenomenon
Star is Born.
and Star is Born, and then the Quincy Jones phenomenon. It was exciting. I didn't see any of them because we were working,
Yeah.
but the town was on fire. I'd never been to any of the big city film festivals. I've never been to Cannes or any of this.
Neither have
But
I.
it was fun to be in Toronto to see what the energy around it is.
Toronto's the big one, right? The one that like open invite where like a lot of people are.
There's a lot of documentaries, and it was.
How would you define that energy? Was it just like an electric? Was it a
Well, it was-
hopeful?
it was
it a
like a con.
It was a hope. Well, there were people in the street. The streets were closed. Some of the main streets were just pedestrian walkways, and there were events. one of which I got to go to because I was a friend of a friend of a friend. But I didn't get to see any of the movies.
Oh.
I just was I was living in a hotel, so the hotel was a buzz.
Yeah.
And it was downtown. The downtown was filled with these. The city was clearly about the festival, and that was kind of fun. Even though I had,
Well, it's one of the bigger ones, correct?
Yeah,
Tiff?
I guess so.
Yeah.
Um,
yeah. It's the one I try to get the courage to submit to.
Yeah.
Needless to say, we always have to mention, just because it is a factor of life, Rotten Tomato score 96%.
Yep.
So critics.
Oh,
love
really?
it. Yes. Critics love it.
The way you phrased that.
Oh,
Oh, really?
It's a delightful
So-
surprise. Yeah.
Did you love it?
I liked it a lot.
That's
This-
a no.
Here we
Did you love it?
we are going to go
I-
into initial reactions.
I loved it, but not as like something I'd go to a theater and see.
Young man?
I liked it a lot. There's a lot of elements of
That's
it
a
that
no.
I really appreciated.
Did you love it?
Look at this new initial reaction. That's what we got to go through next time. Just
At
blast.
first, no.
Yeah, me neither.
Okay, wait, hold on. You didn't let me really answer. I loved the film. I absolutely loved it.
You reneged.
It's like, what are you doing? Beating around the
Take
bush.
two. Take two. He's got a different fucking answer.
You're done.
Now that you heard everybody else's answer, you want to be the guy who
Well, no,
loved
I
it.
hate being the absolute no or absolute yes. And it's like, I like it or I don't like it. Or it's like, I don't hate it.
What I
don't
will
love
say is to go further is that at first I did not like it.
Did you like other films better this year?
Yeah.
Black Klansman.
Oh yeah. That was super good.
We could talk about that. Now let's talk about Roma.
Yes.
All of us
Stars
were
Born
We're doing a double
just like,
episode.
what?
I liked it at first. I mean, I did not like it at first, and
Did it grow on you while you were watching it?
I did, but let me explain. I watched it in increments.
Yeah. That's how I got through The Favorite.
Yeah.
I'm curious about that one too. I don't know.
I'm a fan of the actresses that were in that, so
Yeah.
that I sat down and
And then I went
watched.
back and watched The Lobster on the plane.
Oh, my
Lobster.
goodness.
That's wild. And
Yeah.
the two of them are in that one too.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So I watched it in increments, and with each increment, I started to enjoy it more. And it was more of a kind of it's a movie that you have to digest, and you have to go, what the fuck just happened? And why am I watching?
Yeah.
And not from a mean way of like, okay, trying to understand, like, because a man doesn't go out and film a movie for no reason.
Well, it's the story of his life, no?
Yeah, it's
Well,
90%
yeah.
Have you
driven
seen
from-
Rubber?
Like even the furniture I read, he went through his family homes, anybody that still had some of that furniture,
Oh, so the
and
set.
used some of it.
Oh.
It's
And
a
it's
huge
like-
love letter to his childhood.
Yeah. And it's based on
Childhood nanny.
Lebo.
yeah, Lebo. He based a lot of it on personal experience.
I mean,
So
he
which
also,
kid was he then?
I think he's the middle child. I don't
Yeah.
think he's the baby. But the thing is, like, when Lebo entered his life, he was 9 months old. So he still can't be the little child.
yeah.
Because I feel like you have to have some kind of recognition of like what's going on in his life, even though he's had a relationship with his nanny throughout his entire life. But the way, and I talked to Josh about this before we recorded, the way that the brothers respond to each other is a very interesting dynamic. Like
Oh, there's the great fight with the two kids running around the house and
Yeah.
destroying
yeah.
public property,
Oh man.
But if you notice, like the oldest brother is always separated.
as he was at the ocean.
He's
He's
when
not
they're
in the
watching
ocean
TV,
scene.
when they're watching in the ocean, and when they're on the way back home.
Yeah.
He's always separated. And I told Josh, like, he's going to grow up to be an asshole. Like, that's what's going to happen. Like,
So you think he's the second son then?
I think he's the second one who was, you're supposed to die when I say you're, like, I don't want to play with you anymore.
The one
the
that heard
bossy
the
one.
mom,
The
Yeah.
bossy one, yeah.
heard the mom when she was
And got
like,
slapped.
yeah.
Because he talked about how, like, he wanted to bring that in where, his family was falling apart. And it's like, and he talks about in an interview, he talked about like how memories, some people say it's like it's a mirror that reflects things, but he sees it as a crack where you try covering it up and it never goes away.
Oh,
Lovely man.
that's dark.
But no, I mean, yeah, it's this film's, I think, message.
What was your
Well, I wonder
initial?
if that isn't why we did feel the feels.
Yeah.
Because I had the same reaction. It grew on me and it grew inside me in
Yeah.
a way that I got to the end of the film and I was so completely involved in her life. And and I'm not cynical. I thought that her performance was, and it could be entirely wrong because I didn't read anything about it, was what he had told her to think or feel, or it felt to me as the auteur, if he was the actor or the the writer, director, cinematographer, and he told her the story, and she was not an actress.
Yeah.
It felt to me that he was having her behave, and he must have captured something in what he saw in the casting that he felt, and I don't know, I'm basing this on nothing, that he was sort of Pygmalion-like with her. Is that?
Yeah, I feel the same. I would feel.
I'd say so.
Same way, just because
Kind of sculpting her to be what he needed the sculpture to be.
Well,
doing line reads and stuff like that for her.
He even said that he would not give the actors the scripts until the day of, and then he
creating
would also
that chaos, that natural chaos too.
Yeah, so no two takes would be the same. So he would like kind of tell them what's happening and like what kind of a response he's looking for. But then he would like change things slightly. So they were constantly like, it was evolving in such a way where he's kind of setting the boundaries, but letting them do what is going to happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah. He must have had a lot of time.
Yeah. I mean, I think from writing from this, I think he's been writing this for like almost a decade.
I heard like 2006, he started like putting it together.
That he's wanted to do that personal film for a long time.
Yeah.
So.
The image that keeps coming back to me is the dog shit in the driveway.
Yes. When he gets run over or what he steps on?
No, all the different versions of it. Being picked up, being yelled at because it wasn't picked up, getting run over, rained on.
Yeah.
The dog shit was such a metaphor for
I have such a visceral response with dog poo. I don't know why.
Even though you have 3 dogs.
Even though I have 3 dogs for some.
Yeah, but those dogs don't poo.
They're little.
They're so little, but big poos like these ones. Oh man, I go.
Continuing with the initial reactions. So I worked down in Beverly Hills, and I've seen the billboards for this before, it came out on Netflix, and then Netflix redid their, design so they have a featured movie like watch Roma.
Yeah.
And immediately I said to myself, I am not in an emotional place to watch this movie.
Okay.
Why's that?
I felt like it was going to take a lot out of me. I feel like it was something that was going to engage a lot and then probably spark a lot of, because I come from a family of divorce, and I know how it is to have like a kind of a chaotic relationship with my siblings as well as my parents. And then just seeing that still of a family crying, holding each other on the beach, I was like, I don't know if I can handle this right now. Because I think, with film, especially with someone like Alfonso Cuarón, who's an auteur, there is a level of engagement that is required from an audience that, you can't just be like, I was just going to put it on while I make some food. You have to like sit down, hopefully be in a good place, and sometimes watch it incrementally. We get really used to like, I'm going to just check my email really quick while the credits go. But it's like, this is like, I have to watch the credits. I have to watch this 3-minute sequence.
I felt that, in a way, I'm trying to think of the other filmmaker who did that to me this year, where he stays in shots so long you can't, it's sort of like David Lynch. Are we still in that shot?
Yeah.
Are we not cut yet?
I mean,
no.
It shows huge
Inarritu
balls.
does that a lot.
Yes, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Birdman
it's astounding.
And
Yeah, I watched it. It was like a quiet Sunday afternoon, and I just committed myself. I blocked out the time, and so I did watch it all in one sitting. I'm actually curious did anybody else happen to watch it with headphones on?
No, I watched it on my TV.
I have to talk about the sound mixing.
That's what I was
just
going to bring
a real
up.
quick moment. We have surround sound, and
Must be nice.
it is.
Jealous.
And
Jealous.
we're kind of audiophiles, and so we notice this movie, if you get a chance to watch it in surround sound,
Everyone
it is
at home.
incredible, because so when there's chaos going on and there's
The
a lot
riots, the fire.
riots,
Yeah.
this is the best use of surround sound mixing and design that I've heard in a very long time, because there are different voices
I agree with that,
in the
yeah.
different speakers, and you're surrounded in the scenes. Like the one specific that comes to mind is, spoiler alert, she tells Furman that she's pregnant, and he's like, "Oh, I'm a BT. I'll be right back."
You want some ice cream?
And she goes outside, and there's kind of this market out front. All the
This
chaos
is in the
that's-
movie theater.
in the movie theater,
Right
just
outside of it,
outside
right
the movie
outside.
theater, there's like this market. There's different things going on in all the different speakers, and you actually feel immersed
Claustrophobic
almost in the scene, and you're like, oh dude, there's a vendor behind me.
Yeah.
Like, and that for me, because
Oh, I did feel that
it's
scene.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Did you
There was-
experience that with
That's
headphones as well?
that's what it was. It was because I could have watched it, but I have roommates, and it was night, and I was being considerate or whatever.
Your mother is in country.
My mother is in country, as we've established.
Shout out to your mom.
So I had the headphones on, and yeah, it would be, you know, there's a lot of really, you know, great still shots on, which happened a few times, which I kind of liked, which was kind of like focusing on, you know, not where the action is,
Like
and then
a
just
water
hearing
drop, or like where the
or like
poke
on a
fell
bookshelf when there's like
Cigarettes
conversations
and,
happening.
like wine glasses and the baby bottle, and you're hearing the
Right.
party happen around
Right.
you.
And it was really interesting with the surround sound, hearing it kind of off to the sides, and
You're hearing conversations that are in the
Yeah.
corner of the room or something like that.
Right.
I think this movie is kind of about, it's not meant to be helicopters exploding in the, you know, it's like, it's not a
It's not supposed
crazy.
to
It's
blow
a
your
moment.
hair back.
You're looking in on something.
I think
You're
the
a fly on the wall. So
the
to speak.
revolution scene, I think, was one
Oh,
particular
yeah.
one where
The
it was
most
like,
poignant
what's,
Did
Wait,
you
what's
feel
going
at
on
all?
over
I thinking about it when I was driving over here, that it was a little convenient that she was shopping in that store at the time
Right
that the
outside.
riots and the people who came through the store happened to be Furman.
Oh, that was the
I mean,
only.
I think-
That bugged the shit
that
out
was
of
my
me.
like
me too.
honestly only qualm,
Me too.
because it was like, really, of all the
Really?
people,
How convenient is
I,
this?
I loved that.
I felt like
Yeah.
I absolutely love that, because it's like, of course it has to be him. Because it solidifies that, you know, he's not going to kill her, but he's also not going to do that. This is the
He's
end
not
of the
gonna save her.
relationship. And it's like the pointing gun, where is it pointing to? Her belly, you know? It's
Yeah.
like in the worst time possible, of course the chaos is going to happen. You know,
I
It's
do
like-
have to say, if I saw that shit going on the street, I'd be like, we're going to shop for a crib another day.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, was there people marching, or
kinda-
did you just hear stuff?
it was
It
no,
was
it's-
marching
Yeah, it was
first.
marching first, and then you start to hear things. And I think, you know, I don't know what I would do in that situation, because it started as a peaceful protest that
And then it
quickly
shifted.
escalated and then escalated more.
But it also was bizarre in that the marching was down. They were on the second story.
Yeah.
right.
And they were watching it.
Yeah.
And then of all the marchers in all the world,
I know.
she comes into mind.
See,
It's
like my personal qualm with that, I feel like they could have had like one guy with a gun or something,
Mm-hmm.
and then everybody else is carrying those sticks, and then it's that group, like it's a nod to like, oh, it's those people with the sticks.
Oh, I mean, I saw that happening from miles away. That was like, because when he got on the truck to leave, I was
Yeah.
like, he's gonna be part of some kind of revolution
Yeah.
thing. Like these are boys going to war.
Right.
when they get a truck at the martial arts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I was like, these boys are going to war.
Boy,
And
that
then-
was brutal what he said to her.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
And when, you know, like at the beginning when the husband first leaves, and then you see the people marching with the little trumpet, I was like, something's gonna happen. I don't know what's gonna happen, but some kind of war, violent thing is gonna happen where people
Yeah.
are marching, and it's gonna be a little scary. I don't know. But going back to the initial reaction, I wasn't planning on watching this movie for like another month until you said you wanted to talk about this, and so I was like, all right, I gotta go watch this movie. And
I actually watched the movie because I felt that I had to,
Should.
you had an
and I
intrinsic
wanted to have
As a director, like,
well, as a director, and as also to be part of the conversation around all the awards. You know,
yeah.
Yeah,
it,
you have
it
to
was
do
clearly a movie that is in everybody's
mind.
mind or on their TV or on their to watch list.
Or people will know about it because
Yeah.
you do the whole the award season. Got to watch all the movies that are going to be up for the awards and be like, oh, what are people talking about?
I just
So get
watched
that.
The Wife yesterday,
Oh
okay.
yeah, that's
and Glennie is awesome in this movie.
Yeah.
I didn't know she won. I mean, I didn't imagine that. And I gather I didn't see the Golden Globes. I was somewhere else, but I gather she was very surprised.
Yeah.
that was so good.
Anyway, I'm not sure about the woman who plays the lead in this movie
Uh,
being nominated for Best Actress. I don't get that. But I
I'll
certainly
read
What
do
do
get
you
the
mean
movie.
by you don't get that?
I don't get that there was a lot of acting.
well, yeah, it's
I-
yeah. There's not a lot of. I mean, I call it sadly. I
It's
call it
reacting.
I call it Oscar bait. There's not a lot of like bravado performance where like there's a line or a soliloquy or like a monologue, something that's going on. It's like, oh my god, like give this person an award. It's just more like, yeah, amongst all the blocking and everything that's happening, this person's kind of
She is the core.
yeah,
yeah.
and we're able to place our own emotions and project
Yes.
that stuff. But like the
And that's
director
the
is really telling the
filmmaker and
story
the
around
writer
it.
and the
Exactly.
and I think it's convenient that he does the big three jobs too, because the cinematography was
Phenomenal.
spectacular.
That was the thing that I left with was that as far as what I appreciated about the movie was.
Yeah, I put that at the top of my list of what I appreciated the most too.
Yeah.
And it grew on me. Again, the framing was great, and the pace and the confidence in which he stayed in his wide shots was really astounding.
It instantly reminded me of like Children of Men.
Yeah.
And,
Well, we were
Gravity.
talking about the surround sound part. I was talking about like when they're in the car and they do the full 360 revolution. I was like, you hear all that.
Now I want to go back and watch Children of Men in surround sound.
Yeah, I do too.
Just
See
to
what's
see
there.
that car scene. See
Both
what it's
films
like.
are on Netflix right now.
Hey, convenient.
I actually watched this incrementally as well. Not because it was something I was actively choosing to do. Life just kept popping up.
It just kind of happened that way, and it worked to the advantage.
Well, yeah.
For me personally, yeah.
And when it even started, I actually was like, oh, I'm going to like this. And it wasn't, I guess it was because I wasn't viewing this as a movie, if that makes any sense.
It was an assignment.
No, not an assignment. I wasn't
Professor
viewing
Frakes
it
gave you homework.
as something that is like, I'm gonna go see Aquaman and I'm gonna be wowed by all the the
Jason
CGI
Momoa-ness.
and all the Jason Momoa. It was like very real. It just felt like it was the reacting acting that got me. That's what pulled me in.
I also like the relationship that she had with the other woman who worked in the house.
Yeah.
Yes.
The kitchen relationship was wonderful.
And it just felt very genuine.
Yeah.
Like that's what I
Almost
liked
like
about this movie.
Effortless, but you could see it from the flip side, effortless being not having put enough effort in.
Yeah.
So it's one of those weird,
like a kind of a gray line where it's like, this is a great film. I don't want to say it's like a movie because it is, but it's not.
I mean, I love being that
film.
It's not a movie, it's a film. Exactly, that pretentiousness of it. But I remember when I was watching it, I literally felt like I was back in film school. And I was like, this is just like a film theory. And I was like, of course Jonathan Frakes wants to watch this movie and talk about it. And I was like, oh, of course. And then so incrementally, not really, but like I was taking notes throughout the entire thing.
Oh, no kidding.
Because it felt like it was like watching like Midnight Cowboy or like watching a Kurosawa film like in school. I was like, okay, this is asking me to engage and like actually like look at everything what it needs to. So like I have like all these notes here, just like this. What does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? And it's like it's me just trying to like jot down like all these parts where it's like.
Do you find that it gets in your way of enjoying a film?
No, not anymore. I think before it's kind of like you kind of can't see it for the narrative. Sometimes you have to see it for the subtext.
Yeah, but when you have a master filmmaker at work, like
Yeah.
you can go back. Jaws is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
And Spielberg was great even then.
100%.
And you watch that movie, as I have a couple years ago. It's like everything about it works.
Yeah.
The simplicity of it,
I'll
the
say-
framing, the storytelling.
Yeah, I'll say it did go a little bit in that direction of it felt a little too film school-ish.
Well, I felt like it
in
was
that
like
sense.
it was like throwing a lot of things that I knew that I wouldn't understand, mainly because I've never grown up in Mexico City. But things
Right,
that
yeah.
like I know that this filmmaker has to say that
Mhm.
even though this film takes place in 1970, it has to do with everything that we're talking about now in 2018,
Yeah.
2019.
Because we were talking about this the other day with, I forget what we were talking about, but we were talking about symbology and
Symbology.
and symbolism, rather, not the Angels vs. Demons version, but the symbolism. And it was about Miyazaki
Mhm.
with Spirited Away, the Japanese animated. And crossing cultures is always going to be difficult, but I think that is what makes the director's job that much more difficult, or the writer's job that much more difficult. And you have to be able to reach that point where I don't have to pause and look up what this means and what the significance of that is. There's that, how do you get it?
There's a marriage.
How do you get it an extremely potent, symbolism without having to have people
Without,
face with
it.
without alienating people.
right?
So
So-
I come from it the other way where it's like I'm not being alienated. I'm being told that there's a world to explore.
That's a good point. That's a
So
good way to
instead
see
of
it.
like me feeling like, oh, I don't know it, versus like, oh, I should try to
Well,
learn more about it.
I mean, on that, it's like his pan shots. I mean, specifically, I'm thinking about the 360 when she's turning off all the lights. It is, you're seeing the world that she's exploring. I mean, that she's living in, and you do get to see it and explore it in a way. And then he'll have these like they're one shot ish, and you're seeing the scene, and then you're seeing other bits of the scene.
That was especially true when they went to celebrate at that ranch or whatever that place
the uncle's
was.
house.
The uncle's house.
Oh, yeah.
And the fire
There's
going
a
on.
lot of texture in the
Yeah.
what was being shot.
I mean, and that's why I say like I think about Kurosawa a lot, because he has those like very long telephoto like lens shots where it's like panning someone from all the way in the back to all the way like coming down to the foreground, and there is a stable motion from the beginning and then all the way to the end, and then it stops. Like there's not like this infinite loop of like it's just motion to push the narrative to make you feel like things are happening, but it's like here's one side of the house to the other side of the house, and here's going back down the stairs, and there's a control. There's overindulgence of cinematography that I think people get going crazy about, like parallax, here you go, all this cool stuff, but it's like here you go. Just this is what it's meant to be.
Like the fire scene. It's like you're seeing all this chaos going on, and then you're like Bonnie and I we rewatched that scene because it's like he kind of pans over to the fire, and then he kind of pans over to like the children that are putting out little fires.
And then he gets to the person with the mascot outfit, and then it stops. But it's not like revolving around their head. And
but again, we're all talking about the cinematography in that moment, and which means we were conscious of it.
We see it.
We see it. That's what happened at the end of the Lady Gaga movie of Star is Born. I thought the movie was wonderful and I was entertained. And what should have been the most powerful part of the movie was her singing that song at the end. Steadicam just sort of moved around, didn't seem to have a point of view, didn't seem to make any. It was very. I was so disappointed.
It was very passive. It was not very active on.
Yeah, or it wasn't committed to a point of view about what was important.
Didn't want to sell.
Yeah, it was sort of like a music video version of it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Zooms.
So you said the movie grew on you over time. So
I think it grew on me while I was watching.
While you were watching it, is it? So do you like Roma?
I do like Roma very much.
So you don't love it? Okay.
I didn't love it.
It's a no for Jonathan.
So no.
So no.
But next time we'll talk about Totoro.
Yeah.
I'm feeling pretty complete.
Do you have anything you want to plug in at the end? Because I think there's
Keep watching Discovery. Keep watching Orville. Keep watching Gifted.
Okay.
All right.
Do you have any social media that you would like?
Jonathan S. Frakes on Twitter. Get the numbers up because I came to Twitter late and I'm having my ass kicked by Will Wheaton and Brent Spiner and LeVar Burton, who have millions of followers.
We'll spread the word. Don't worry.
Okay, good.
We will definitely spread the word. Well, everybody at home, thank you so much for listening. We really do appreciate your support. That is why we are able to keep going. Everybody listening, you can check us out on nerdon.tv, keeping it easy, super easy. We've got a newsletter that's going out every month, once a month, keeping that simple. And yeah.
We got Trope Time, if you want to check that out. That comes out monthly.
Yes, it is our other podcast that we do, our two hosts, Izzy and Nikki. And that is the first Monday of every month. But we really appreciate it. And you know the drill. As always, nerd on.
Thank you, guys.
Ending broadcast.